Hello everyone, I am Lelu and today we are going to see how to create this nice beam effect in Godot. This is a cool exercise to learn some shader tricks, combining different mesh particles with simple particles. So for this VFX we need to create some meshes first. With that being said, let's go to Blender and let's create our meshes. So here we are. I will delete this and I want to Shift A, create a cylinder. I want this to be nothing. Okay, let's rotate this 90 degrees and move it 1 unit to the left. Nice. And it's very important that the pivot point of the cylinder is here in the top of the cylinder. Now I can duplicate this cylinder and expand this a little bit, move it to the left. So I want this to look like a big wave. Let's move this a bit more, stretch it. Nice. So now I can add some loops here, like this. And maybe reduce this a little bit, and here a bit. And also our cylinder, we can do the same, add some loops here, maybe one more here, and reduce this a little bit so it looks like a beam, right? Awesome. And finally we can press W and shade smooth this and this. Awesome. So now we have these cylinder meshes with UVs. Let's export this to Godot. So now we have our cylinders. So we can create our particle system. So I will create a new node 3D. And inside this node I will add GPU particles. So in order for our particles to work, we need to add a process material. Okay, so let's click here and select new particle process material. And here in this material we can edit all the properties of our particle system. But first we need to add our cylinder mesh. So let's click here into draw process, and here we can select our cylinder 1 mesh, and here we are. So right now we have 8 cylinders, so we only need 1, so let's put here 1 in the amount. And I want this to have a lifetime of 2 seconds. And right now it has a gravity. That's the reason why it falls down. So let's go to accelerations and gravity, and let's set this to 0. Awesome. So now we have a cylinder here, a static cylinder. So we want this to be stretched into the Z-axis in order to look like a beam, right? So if we go here to display scale, here we can edit the scale of this cylinder over the time. So in the scale curve, let's select curve XYZ texture, open it, and we want this to be expanded into the Z-axis. So let's edit this Z curve, and here we can, for example, stretch it, so we can see how this cylinder is being expanded from 0 to 1 in the Z-axis. But we want this number to be higher, so we want this laser beam to go over right here. So let's put a max value of maybe 8, and let's move it. So now we have our cylinder, but we want this cylinder to have an energy-like effect, right? So in order to do that, we need to create a material. So I will go ahead and into the geometry tab, material override, we can go ahead and create a new shader material. Let's click here and now it asking for a shader here. So we need to create a shader. For that we need to right click here, new resource, visual shader, and let's put the mode into spatial mode. Let's name this S underscore dynamic underscore shader. Let's create this, and now we can drag and drop our shader into our material. Cool. So now if we click here, we want this to be double-sided, so I will put the cool mode to disable, and we also need into the flags it needs to be unshaded. Nice. Cool. So now if we double click our dynamic shader, we can see the properties of our shader. We can hide the shader if we want, clicking here as well. So here we can, for example, assign a color to this. So we can right click and look for input, and here we can put color. Connect this to the albedo. So now if we go to the particle, we move up here into the display color curves, we can pick a color. For example, we can choose this orange. Awesome. So in order for this to look more dynamic, we need to add some textures, right? So I will create a new folder. Let's name this textures, and here I can drag some textures. I have these nice textures. You can create your own textures if you want to. For now I will use this. So for example, we can drag this texture, put it here, and connect this to the alpha channel. But this is a node and it needs a black and white node. So let's decompose this. Vector 4 decompose. Color. Let's pick this into the alpha. Cool, so now we have this nice texture. But let's say, for example, we want to modify this texture. So we can increase the contrast of it. So we can drag this and look for a power node. And here we can set a number, for example 2. Connect this to the alpha channel, and now it looks different. If you click here, you can see how it looks after and before. For now I will set the power for 1.5. Yeah. Cool. We can also make this texture more dynamic by moving it. So in order to do that, we need a UV panning node. Connect this, and we need a time node, and the time we can multiply it, for example, by vector 2, and connect it to the offset. And here, for example, we can add a value of 1, maybe 2. In the y-axis we can add 1. So now we get this interesting effect. Oh, we have some problem also. If we go to the GPU particle, and for example, if we go to the color and we try to reduce the opacity of the color, it don't work because it is not connected to the alpha. The color is only connected to the albedo. So in order to make this affect the opacity of the texture, we need to first decompose this color, take the alpha channel and multiply this by the texture. So now if we reduce the opacity here, it will reduce the opacity as well in the texture. Nice. Cool. So let's say we want to modify these parameters, these values, in different materials. So we want these values to be editable here. In order to do that, we need to create a parameter. So for example, we can create a float parameter. Let's name this to textured power. Let's enable this and put a value of 1.5. Connect this to here. We can also control the speed with a parameter. So let's create a vector2 parameter. Let's name this speed and connect this to the vector. What else? For example, we can modify the texture. Instead of having this texture, we can delete this and look for a texture 2D parameter. We need to sample this, so texture 2D, and connect this here and here, and we can name this texture energy texture. Awesome. So now if we, let me get this, if we go to the particle, drop down to the material, we can open the shader parameters, and here we can drag, for example, this texture here, and we can set a power, for example, of 1.3, speed of 2, and -1. Yeah, I like this. Also for the color, I want to edit the color, so I will set a default value of 1.2, 0.5, 2.5. So now we have this cylinder done. I will name this main energy cylinder. Let's save this. And now I can add the splash mesh. So I will add another particle system, GPO particle system. Let's go to the process material. Let's add a new process material. So here we can control all the parameters. Into the draw passes, I want to add the cylinder 2 mesh. Right now, let's set the amount to 1. Let's go to the gravity, set this to 0. And let's add a lifetime of 1.5. Cool. So now we can also go ahead and create a new material. So let's go to the geometry, material override, and let's create a new shader material. And I will drag and drop my dynamic shader material. Let's open it. Drag and drop here. Cool. Now I can adjust this. For example, I want this to have a different texture. I can use this one. I can set the texture power to maybe 1.5 and the speed to 1.5 and this to this. And also let's go to the display color. This color. Awesome. So now we have this interesting effect, but we have a problem. Right now I can see the borders, the hard borders of the mesh. So we need to modify our shader. So let's go to the shader editor. And in order to do this, I want to create a texture 2D. And I want this to be a gradient 2D texture. Let's modify this. So I want this to be up like this. We can also modify here the gradient intensity, but I prefer to do that using a node. So I can decompose this and use a power to control that gradient. I can also set a parameter, a float parameter, to control the intensity of the gradient. Let's name this gradient power. Let's put a default value of 1, connect it to here, and I will multiply the alpha channel with the gradient value. So now it looks much better. And if I go to the particle and to the material of the particle, I can set here the gradient power. I will put a value of 3. Nice. Cool. So now we have our beam, we have our splash cylinder. I will name this splash energy. Awesome. So now we need our little beam in the middle. So in order to do that, I will duplicate my main energy cylinder. Ctrl D. Let's name this little cylinder. Cool. In the little cylinder, I want this to have a different color and different stuff. So I need to go to the process material, open it, and make this unique by right-clicking, make unique. This is important. Make this unique, otherwise it will affect the value of the big cylinder as well. So cool. Here I can, for example, change the color. I can set a more intense color. So for example, this 331, much more intense color. Also, I can go ahead and change the scale of this one. I can put a maximum scale of 0.3. Nice. And let's go to the material geometry, and I want to use a different material for this one, so I will remove this one and create a new material, shader material, and assign our shader, dynamic shader. And here I can add a new texture. Maybe this one will look nice. And let's put a speed of 2 and here a speed of -1. I want this to have a texture power of 2. Awesome. Cool. So now I want this mesh to be, it needs to be faster, so I need to adjust the scale curve. So let's go to scale curve. I want this to make this unique as well, otherwise it will copy the values of the first cylinder. Make unique, this is important. So here I can set a max value of 200 and move this so it looks much more faster. Awesome. So it's time to add our final details. So I want to add another particle system, a GPU particle system, and let's create a process material, new particle process material. So here in draw passes, this time I will choose a new quad mesh, and here I will set the size to 0.1 by default. So now it's hard to see, but let me hide the other. So here we can see these particles falling down. So let's create a new material for this as well. So let's create new shader material, and we need to add a shader for this. But this time I want to use a new shader. So I will create a new resource, a visual shader, and I will name this s_simple shader. Create. We'll assign this shader to my material, and here I will set the mode to unshaded. So right now we have these particles falling down here, and I want them to follow the camera. So I will go to the shader, the simple shader, which is this, is empty, but I will go to the vertex, and here I will look for a node, get billboard matrix. I will connect this and put it in particles mode, keeping a scale. So now if I rotate the camera, the plane is always looking at the camera, which is awesome. So go back to the fragment section, and here I want to add a texture. Maybe I can use this texture. This looks nice. I will put this into the alpha channel. And oh, sorry, I need to decompose this because I only need a single channel because it's black and white. And also for the albedo I need an input color from the particle system, and I will decompose this as well and multiply the alpha channel with the texture. Connect the albedo. So now if I go to the particle system, in the display color I can set a new color. I will set my purple color. Like this. Cool. Maybe the particles are quite small, so I will go to scale and set a new scale of 3, maybe. A value between 2 and 3.5, it's okay. Like this. And also we can set an alpha curve so it disappears over time. New curve. So something like this. Maybe, yeah, I think this is okay. Maybe we can increase the color a bit, so maybe something like this. Looks much more intense. I don't want them to fall down, so I will disable gravity, put this into 0. We'll go to spawn velocity, initial velocity between 5 and 8 in the z-axis. As for the speed, I will set it to 0, and I want to set an initial position spawn. Instead of a point, I want them to spawn into a sphere. Yeah, something like this. Maybe we can add more particles. Let's put this into maybe 25 particles. Also, we can add and go to velocity, animated velocity, and set an radial velocity of between 2 and 0. So let's enable all the meshes, and here we have the beam effect. So now we don't want this to spawn all the time, just on a specific time. So I will go to every mesh here and into the time. Let me set this, for example, to 1.5 seconds. I will put the explosiveness to 1, and I want this to be one shot, just emitting one time, like this. We'll do this for all the meshes. So for example, this, once again, a time of 1.5, one shot, explosiveness of 1. So now if I click emitting on, it appears. We'll do the same for this. I want this to have explosiveness, to be one shot. Nice. And the same for the particles. We'll go up. I will put the explosiveness to 0.6 and one shot. Or maybe... no, let's set back to 0.2. It's okay. So now it looks like this. But maybe we need more particles, so let's add 50 particles. Let's see. Looks awesome. So now we need to play all this at the same time. We can use a script to activate the particles, but this time I will use an animator. So let's add an animation player, and here I can create a new animation. Let's call this beam effect. Let's click OK. And here we can, for example, click our particle main energy cylinder, hit emit, and then hit this key, create. Awesome. Let's do this for all the meshes. Select the little cylinder, emitting on, and key. OK. On, key. This one too, on, and key. So now if we hit play over here, so that's almost it. I can just keep adjusting some parameters so I can make it disappear in a more subtle way. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this tutorial was useful for you, and please let me know in the comments if you have any question or suggestion for a new tutorial. Bye.